We're going to wrap things up with our final guest. Joe Applebaum made the stupidest decision of his life when, sometime in the last year, he decided to run for president of the New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, known as NYTHA, and unfortunately for you, you won. So let me ask you a question. Was this worse than your experience as a defensive back at Yale, when in your first play you thought you were going to intercept a ball, and I believe you hyperventilated? Is that true?
I can see you've been talking to Tom Coleman, too.
Possibly. You possibly have been talking to him. Which was worse, the hyperventilating or the idiocy of running to be the president of NYTHA?
It wasn't the first play that I hyperventilated. It was at the end of a 12-play drive. So give me a little credit. The good news about the NYTHA election is I ran unopposed. So it was,
now we know why you won.
Every horse owner loves a walkover.
So how did you get involved? First of all, tell people what NYTHA does.
So NYTHA is an organization that represents all the horsemen. So horsemen are owners and trainers. So we do three things, really. One, we represent the interests of all the workers on the backstretch. We run a medical clinic. We have a $200,000 scholarship program. We run recreation programs. We run English as a second language programs. We take care of all the people who take care of our horses, number one. Number two, yes, thank you. Number two, we represent the interests of the owners and trainers in Albany, negotiating with NYRA, worrying about purse structure, how many days we're going to run, all sorts of political stuff. I assume no one's going to applaud for that. It's not that fun, but it's important. And third, we're interested in the general welfare of the horses. So we spend about $300,000 a year on horse retirement and second careers for the horses. That deserves a big applause. Our staff works with a network of people around the country, putting horses in good situations after they retire and making sure they have second careers. It's so important for these horses that they're doing something and they're active and they're not just pastured. So those are really the three things that we work on.
And you're an unusual guy in that you come to this position as an owner, and you've been an owner for how long?
15 years.
And you're also a bettor. You're a serious bettor.
That's how I started.
Right.
And that's at my core, that's how I think about everything, and that's my roots.
And I think it's rare in a situation like that for somebody. I mean, Rick Violet, who did such a great job for so many years, but Rick's a trainer and comes at it from a different perspective. Do you think yourself as an owner, but better, you bring a different perspective, a broad perspective?
Well,
not to knock Rick, who did a tremendous job for so many years and dedicated so much of his life to it.
And Rick deserves every credit.
Absolutely.
He built up NYTHA. He put us on a firm financial footing, and no one's been a greater advocate for horses and horsemen in New York.
I agree.
Coming from it as a bettor and a customer, that's really how I think about it. And that I was the guy sitting in the backyard, and I still am. You can still find me back by the big red spring pretty much every day.
The purple tables.
Yeah. And you can find me down at Belmont. I started out with 4 or 5 friends sitting in the backyard, betting $2, $10 a race, building it up. So I think I have probably a broader perspective. Clearly, I don't have the in-depth perspective as a trainer might, who's there every day with the horses. But I understand how the racing and the gambling go together, how it's important to think of the different people at the track and how to balance their interests. We'll hear a lot of crazy arguments, let's say on Twitter, about takeout and handle and the horseman versus the bettor. It's mostly crazy Twitterness.
Noise.
And I think that's my, let's call it advantage, and that I understand how everyone's needs need to be met if we're going to have a successful game.
How's it going so far?
Great so far.
How much time did you spend in the winter with Glenn Kozak trying to fix the broken generator out in the freezing cold? That was your indoctrination into your new job, right?
Yes, I spent quite a lot of time in extremely cold weather at Belmont, but
you were with Glenn, so that's not a bad
That was
thing,
Glenn,
right?
And Glenn is a great guy. We have NYRA staff, Glenn and Bobby Sicca,
He's our head of security.
Just
He's a wonderful man. He's insane, but he's a wonderful man.
these guys
We're all
are
insane, so let's be
yes.
honest.
You know, Coach Parcells, I heard him speak the other night at the Hall of Fame, and they asked him why he loved this game, and he said, because he's maladjusted. And, and he said, we're all maladjusted, otherwise we wouldn't like this. So I think that suits.
And how do you see things moving? Now, you know, obviously you have great perspective now inside. How do you see things moving forward in the game, in New York and in general?
Well, my general outlook is that we have this kind of hidden gem that has so much going for it.
Horse racing in general.
Horse racing in general, sir. And because of a lot of reasons, the way we're regulated, the way a number of large companies have developed within the game, the way we're kind of fractured, right? We're all opinionated here. If you have a horse, I run a horse because I think my horse is better than yours. You're a handicapper because you think your opinion is better than hers. So it's sometimes hard for us as an industry to all get together and make the changes necessary. But in general, I see us as this uncovered gem that if we could modernize the business, if we could rip it into the 21st century, we still operate in many ways like a 19th century sport, let alone a 20th century sport. I think the business has a lot of potential, and that's really why I got involved, because I was frustrated. Years of sitting in the backyard and sitting in your seats and figuring, you know what, I can complain, and why is it like this, and why do they charge me that? But if you don't get involved, you know, your gripes hold a lot less validity.
Well, Joe, we're all better off for having you involved, and we're very happy to have you join us. Joe Applebaum from NYTHA. Perhaps you'll join us again when we have more time, but it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
This is great. Thank you so much.